All right, so the first time you meet with an actual potential buyer of a property, it could be an online inquiry, which is a little bit different because you're sort of strangers when you meet at the first house. So in your mind, you should be thinking about, how am I going to talk to these people about all the things I can do for them? How you do that if it's a little bit easier and they were just referred to you by somebody else. So let's start from the top. We work on a team, we get a lot of online leads, and so we're constantly meeting people and they're strangers. And so we're trying to figure out, like, how do we get this person comfortable with talking to them about going through the process of buying a house? And it starts with the question it's like, have you ever bought a house before? Has anybody ever taken the time to actually explain to you how this works from A to Z? And what we found is most of the time that question is avoided, or they don't know to ask it. So of course, if you ask that question, you're gonna have a certain percentage of people who say, no, nobody's ever taken the time to actually show me that. And then you're gonna have the other side of the camp, which is they've been through the process already. So it becomes very easy. If they say no, obviously it's wide open season. Well, hey, why don't we take the time to do that? In fact, all the people that I've ever helped and I've sold, and then you insert how many homes you've sold, right? What I found is that if I take the time to actually explain this to you over 10, 15 minutes, sit down meeting, you have a much better experience. And that actually works for your people who've bought a home before, because chances are they didn't have a great process. And so it's still valuable for them too. And so your whole goal is, let's convert this into a sit down at some Starbucks or wherever. Sometimes it's actually in the property itself. Maybe you go show 1, 2, 3 houses. Maybe you even strategically think about showing them a vacant property for the last property, and then you're gonna initiate this conversation there after you ask that question. So let's get into the framework for what you're gonna uncover in this meeting. Your whole thing is, I wanna understand more about your situation, and you actually are after, what are the wants, the needs, what are the deal breakers? What are the things that they really want in a home, need in a home, and what actually would make them not buy a house altogether? And then you're taking notes. So it's in your best interest, if this is a person that is not familiar with the area at this point, to really talk about the different locations. So if you're in a specific city and you have surrounding cities like we do here, you're talking about the benefits of this area versus, because it is not in your best interest if a client is so confused that they don't even know that the location that they want to buy in, they don't have that defined, right? So let's say you've been through like their wants, their needs, their deal breakers. What comes next? So I firmly believe the next thing that you talk about is how you integrate yourself into working with them specifically. So what do you actually offer them? What is it that you do? Do you go and video houses? Do you just show them houses? How does the showing process work? Do you have a website? Do you set them up on your website? Do you send them e-alerts of listings? Like all those sort of tactical things that they need to understand so that you can get on the same page. Because when you actually work with a buyer, you're a team with that buyer. And so you need to be on the same page. Are you setting up a group text? So if there's a husband and a wife, there's multiple decision makers, everybody is on the same sheet of music, because you could rely on email, but email is it's a little bit behind. I mean, most people don't even check their email every few hours like they do their text messages. So how are you going to be in this concert of communication so that you can make sure that everybody's on the same page? So the next thing you want to talk about is, like, how do you help them find like a decent deal, right? Like, so if they go find a house, and how can you ensure that the list price of that home is actually the right price? So let's say it's a house for $600,000. You need to be communicating with them in terms of, what are the other homes that have sold in that area that are worth the same amount, and how close are they as comparable sales, so that they have some confidence that when you do find a property, that it actually is the right purchase for them, the right value, it's going to protect their investment, all those things. So everybody skips this step about the price. They just let the buyer tell them what they want to see, and then they go look at the home, and then when the buyer likes it enough, they help them make an offer, but they don't check the price or anything like that, and it's actually a disservice to the consumer. And so as a realtor, you should understand that that's your job, is to actually make sure that they're making a good purchase, and you need to convey that to them. And it doesn't mean that you have to find them the most amazing deal. I mean, it could be the house that they really want, and you confirm that, and your only job is to make sure that you convey to them what the actual value is. So if they're going to overpay for the property based off of like whatever's going on with the market, if it's a low inventory market, that's totally fine, as long as they're aware that that's what the value is. So conveying to them how you're different, how you help them win offers, how you judge what the properties are, like what is the first thing you should do when you're actually out showing them, if it's in person or whether it's not in person, is you want a benchmark house. You want the house that you can judge all the other homes against. And I use like a 0 to 10 scale. Like, tell me if this, after we've seen this house or you've seen a video of this house, is this house an 8? Is it a 9? Is it a 10? Like, we need to create a standard for a house that you really love, and so we can compare all the others against it. Because if you're looking online and you're looking every day and I'm sending you listings, or you're looking on Zillow or Redfin, we need something to compare it against to decide, are we going to go view this home in person together? Are we going to do a video of this house if we're not together? And that way you have an idea of what makes sense to do going forward based off of like all the new listings. Because let's be real, like if you were a buyer, and do you have time to go look at every new listing that comes on market? Probably not. So they need to fall into your camp of like, you know, the specific things you're looking for: bedroom, bathroom, square footage, lot size, whatever. But you also need to be really cognizant of the fact that you can't go view every single home. You need to create a concentrated list and then have something to compare it against. And when you're a realtor, it is very important that you prepare your buyer for the fact that maybe they're going to be local and maybe they want to see an open house sign and go look at the property, right? And they're going to meet another agent. So you got to be prepared to have a conversation of what they should do in that situation. Should they give them a business card? Should they just say, hey, I'm working with Aaron already, right? You prepare them for that. Prepare them for new construction, because the reality is if they go walk into a new construction site, and the new construction people are going to assume that you never told them about that property and that they should have showed up with you to show them that property. So the first thing they're going to want to do is cut you out of the fee, right? And the reality is, I mean, buyers will go and do whatever they want at times. If they see signs, they're going to go look. If they see new construction signs, they want to go through the model homes. Like, just prepare them for the conversation. And as realtors, it's not necessarily your fault. It becomes your fault if you don't prepare them. So what I want you to learn how to do is explain the process in such a way where you can tell them, here are the steps. Like, we're going to do what we're doing now, which is get on the same page. Then we're going to go look at properties. Then we're going to negotiate a property. Here's how I'm going to do the best job for you possible. And then after that, we're going to actually go through these steps, which is the home inspection, the appraisal, and then we're going to do the handoff where you get keys. So keep it really consolidated, keep it really basic. And what I encourage you to do is all the things in between, let them know I'm going to be there for you, so that every day we're in communication on those different items. I'm going to be explaining as we go what those next steps are, so that they're very confident that you'll always be in front of them for steps. Like, they should never be asking you all the questions that are important. They should be asking you things that maybe you look at and you kind of laugh about a little bit, but those big items, like, they shouldn't be asking you what happens next. So some of the questions you need to be prepared for are, how much do I have to put down? Like the basic stuff, right? Like, people will ask these things and you need to be prepared to how to answer them, which is making sure that they understand that they're going to be partnered with a good person to do their mortgage that will handle that part of it. But I encourage you to be hand in hand with that mortgage consultant, so you know every little detail. The payment has been confirmed. So if you have a person that wants to buy a $600,000 house or a $500,000 house, Do they know in the area they're shopping what that monthly payment exactly is? Because if you go out and show them houses and you find them a house for $500,000 and they don't know what that payment is, and it ends up being way more than they want, like, you are screwed. They are going to cancel the transaction more than likely. And so being prepared for all those things in advance is really important. They're also going to ask questions about, like, should I buy a home that needs repairs? So you got to have that conversation about, like, doing fix-up work. You're going to want to have some contractors sort of in your pocket that you work with that you know are reliable, so that you have an understanding of, like, what it costs to put new carpet in per foot and all those different things. How do they assess, like, the crime of the neighborhood is another question that comes up a lot. So you're going to want to refer them to the place where they can get that information online. All right, so let's talk about how you talk about the market. If you are not tracking these three things about the market, which is the sales price going up or down in the last 30 days and the last 12 months, you should know both numbers. Like, I know both numbers for my county right now and multiple counties, and you should too. So is it 30 days, 12 months? Second number is, what's the average days on market? Again, last 30 days, and then what's it look like in the last year compared to last year? And then the last thing is, what are the offer intensity look like? So you measure that based off of the original sales price to the list price ratio, right? So if things are selling at 103% of the original list price, you know that, like, a $500,000 house, it's going for 3% above. That means it's selling for $515,000. That's $15,000 above. And so you need to be able to convey that to your people in a market conversation. So, hey, here's what's going on in the last 30 days plus, back to 1 year. Homes are selling, and they're selling at this pace for this price at this pace, and convey that to them so they understand. And you need something to compare it against, because if you start going out and showing houses and you know that you've got a buyer who wants a deal, and they want to buy something for $25,000 under the market value, it starts to get really complicated if you haven't explained to them, say, look, everything is selling right now at 101% of the average price. That's the average. So everything is selling 1% above the price. That means the deal that you're seeking, it means that we need to be looking at the houses that have been on market for 7 days plus. And so it starts to get you on the same page in terms of strategy. So do yourself a favor, have a market conversation. It doesn't have to be super in depth, but at least explain what's going on. And what I'd recommend is, when you start showing houses to somebody, keep track. In the Northwest MLS, I know we can set up a cart for the person. So every single listing that they ever send to you or you send to them, start tracking, start putting them in one cart, so that as they go pending, as they're sold, you can start to tabulate that data really easily, just doing a one-up line comparison CMA. And so you're gonna know, hey, you can come back to them and say, you guys are always wanting to write this offer for $20,000 or $30,000 under asking price, but I just did the math on everything you've ever been interested in. And just so you know, the average of all of these is that people have paid $10,000 above the asking price. And there's only one person out of 25 or whatever the number is that's actually gotten that type of deal. So the homes you're looking at, they're great, they're hot. It means you've got great taste, but it's going to be really difficult for us to get the deal that you're actually looking for, and we're going to have to adjust our strategy. All right, so the last thing you want to talk about in a buyer consultation is what they can expect from you. So everybody just assumes that we do a good job, but do we actually tell them what we do specifically? Do we actually communicate with them when they can expect to hear from us, and how we set up their search, how we expect them to, send us listings and us to send them listings back, how we find additional properties for them that are off market, whatever it is that you bring to the table that you can bank on, that you feel really confident about, that you're all shy about, that you don't want to tell them. You need to figure out a way to tell that buyer of yours how you actually work, because I've seen so many agents and I've coached so many agents who actually keep this really private for whatever reason, and they go through the process, and so their buyer realizes this, but they don't realize this until they're halfway through or the end. And you actually need people to know this up front, especially into this new market we're going into, where it's really important that we communicate like what we do for people, because the commissions are in question and all these things, commissions being stripped from listings, to where we have to explain to people that, hey, there's this reality where I have to be compensated for what I do. So you need to know exactly how I work. And this conversation has never really needed to occur. I mean, the best agents always had this conversation, but going forward, everybody needs to have this conversation. You need to understand how to unpack it. So know what you do specifically, write it down, get really good about talking about it, and then be able to sit right here with somebody in front of you and explain it with no hesitations, no stuttering in your speech, and no delays. All right, so it's really important to me that you actually take the time to have some mastery of some of what I've talked about. I know I unpacked a lot, but it's extremely important, because when I first started real estate, I had nobody to coach me, and I did things like I just learned organically, and I did not develop mastery of skills. And I would highly recommend it, because it's super important, because this is your career. And if you actually want to make it your career and support your family, this is something you need to take seriously and take ownership of. And you don't get good at it, then those are the results you deserve. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. Be sure to check out the channel. There's more videos like this where you can get a lot of good tips. And be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more videos with stuff like this.